I've generated millions of dollars for various different companies I've consulted for by implementing psychology and ethical persuasion techniques into how they sell and how they market. And in today's video, I'm going to be reacting to lots of different TikToks with people talking about persuasion, so I can tell you what they're doing in the video and how they're marketing to you, and also give you a bit of a clue into if the advice is actually good or bad. Some of these TikToks have got very, very good advice. Some of these other TikToks have terrible advice and you should never ever follow it. Up first, we have Alex Hormozi.
I'm trying to get my wife to go where I want to go to dinner. Because I want to go to Cheesecake Factory, the finest establishment in the land. If I say, hey, babe, you want to go to Cheesecake Factory? She might be like, well, no, I don't want to go to Cheesecake Factory. Or like, I'm not really sure. Now, if I switch that and I said, babe, would you be against going to Cheesecake Factory? You're like, well, I'm not against going to Cheesecake Factory. And I'm like, great, let's go.
Believe it or not, the order of words in which you ask a question can have a significant impact on the outcome of the response there. And that is exactly what Alex is alluding to here.
The beauty of a no-based question. See how different it's phrased? And if I say, hey, you excited to move forward today? That's a yes, right? It's harder to get someone to say, yes, I'm excited to move forward today. Would you be opposed to moving forward at the end of the conversation? No, I'm not opposed to moving forward. Great. And we get the sale. The psychology behind this is that people feel safer saying no. They feel like they're at ease, especially like you think about decision fatigue. At the end of the day, people don't want to be responsible for anything. They don't feel vulnerable to saying yes and agreeing to something, right? Instead, they prefer to say no and stay safe.
So the psychology that Alex talked about here is called the framing effect. And the framing effect is very, very powerful persuasive psychology. And he's exactly right in his description. I would add a little bit more onto it just to give a bit of a fuller picture. The framing effect works because in general, humans don't like to take 100% stance on things. They don't like to, say absolutes, 100% like something versus 100% dislike something, because really we don't have the mental capacity to, deal with potential conflict when it comes to basic casual decision making. So when something is phrased as do you want to versus are you opposed to, if you actually think about the question, it goes from do you like this to do you 100% reject this? And the second part, do you 100% reject this, is actually way harder to basically disagree with. And you probably get taken advantage of this all the time as well. If you're in employment and your boss comes over to you and says, do you want to work late tonight? That would probably make you want to say, well, of course I don't want to work late tonight. But if he comes over to you and says, hey, this report needs doing, are you against staying a little bit longer tonight? You'd probably be like, no, I'm not against it at all. Of course, I'll, do a little bit extra, right? But basically, it's the same question. Very, very powerful persuasive psychology, but also in the wrong hands, as with all persuasion, it can go from ethical to unethical. Up next, we have Ramit Sethi, and Ramit Sethi is a New York Times bestseller who has, written books on managing money and things like this. But also as well, he's released a lot of different courses on businesses. He is one of the OGs when it comes to, creating an online business. He's done very, very well over the years.
I recently saw some scammer who we both know online promoting 20% returns. It said 20 in huge. I'm like, how's this guy not incarcerated? Anyone who knows the basics of personal finance, in fact, anyone who's watched this interview knows 7% is your good comparison. So if somebody's promising me 20% returns, I already know it's a lie.
I absolutely love Ramit's advice here. It's realistic, it's practical, it's grounded in reality as well. And what he's saying is that people will try and lure you into their marketing campaigns by over-promising on the result which you can get out of it. And the problem is the people who are more ethical marketers, they will promise you, things which don't quite make your mouth water, which might be very achievable, right? You can create your first few $1,000s online versus the guy who's like, if you want to be a millionaire, shows you loads of fast cars, then you've got to follow my advice, blah, 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 blah. I have never seen an example of where that has ever paid off, of where that highly rewarding dopamine type of marketing, where they're promising to the moon, has ever paid off. And Ramit is exactly right here. You've got to watch out for the people who, promise you things like that. If you come across an account who is saying to you, hey, you're at zero right now, you haven't got a business, but within 2 months you can have $1 million business if you just follow my advice and buy my course. Complete BS, right? It has never happened. It probably has happened, but it's like 1 in a million people, and there's some sort of luck event where it's happened as well. So I love the fact that he's so grounded, and his message is to watch out for the people who are promising too much reward, because reward, remember, is a type of persuasion, and it just depends on how high you increase that reward. It depends on how over-promising it is from what's realistically possible.
Cannot be true. It would be like me going and saying, I can promise you that you can run 40 miles an hour if you use my supplement. You're just like, I know this is a lie, it's impossible. And you and I both know that over the course of the long term, it is effectively impossible for 20% returns.
And one major point I want to say about, the gurus online over-promising things, if you haven't got any experience of the industry, and you are maybe, you're down on your luck, right? Things aren't going right. You are running out of money. You are looking for anything. You're in a desperate, dire situation, right? And then you see these things online, which you've never encountered before, of people over-promising things. That type of persuasion can be very, very effective on a person who is desperate for hope, who hasn't been also exposed to things like that as well, because they don't really have the trigger to say, oh, hold on a minute. They haven't really got the baseline of knowing, what's truth and what's not, right? But please, if you see people over-promising what you'll get, $1 million in a week, whatever, start your business now. You've got no business experience, and you'll be able to generate, $2 million in a month's time. Just ignore it, right? Please take it from me. There's been enough people burned. Up next, we've got Andy Elliott, sales trainer, tries to get 20K from me. Let's have a watch.
I signed up to be contacted by one of his recruiters, and he wanted me to sign up for one of the VIP packages at one of Andy's sales retreats. After
swag bag, you get closer seats, you're more closer to the stage, you're in better eye contact with Andy.
You're in better eye contact with Andy. What type of selling point is that? You get better eye contact with the person who's teaching, right? I feel like this guy who's selling needs to go back to his script and, maybe frame that as in, you might get more attention because you're in a room closer to the person who's teaching.
So I asked him if I could do something one-on-one with Andy.
Well, bro, it's funny that you say that, because we actually have this thing called Bloodline Breaker, where you'll work out with Andy, where he'll do like a mastermind for like 3 hours.
What's that?
A mastermind is him talking, you having that time with him.
Because he's a mastermind.
Yes, right.
Okay, how much is that?
Now, that one's $20,000 for that.
Now, what I will say is people are usually turned away by big price tags like 20 grand for 3 hours. If you're turned away by that, what I would say is you're probably not the right audience. There is a lot of money that flows in the world to people who are maybe at like the $1 million level or so on or so forth, and these high price tags are kind of expected. But I'm not very impressed with the sales guy at the moment. He's not really selling much, doesn't seem to be. Let's see how he carries on.
I asked what else that 20K gets me.
Shaking his hand, bro tapping him, all that stuff. Absolutely.
What's bro tapping?
Shaking his hand, slapping his back. Bro.
Shaking his hand, slapping his back, broing him up. What am I learning at this mastermind? Unbelievable.
Dabbing him up.
Ooh. Slapping his back?
I don't know, he might let you do it if you ask him.
I mean, I paid him 20 grand. I should be able to slap his butt. So he sent me an invoice for $5.
If I'm paying him 20 grand, I should be able to slap his butt. This guy, crazy.
Okay, and he wanted me to pay them right then and there over the phone. And on the invoice, it said non-refundable. So I asked him what that meant. And he said if something happens and you weren't able to make it, then we would keep the money. I said, oh, if like my grandma dies or something? And he said, yeah. So I told him I was gonna go get my credit card and put him on hold for a few minutes.
All right, so few important points in this video. This sales guy, I have no idea what he's trying to sell. And the fact that this guy came back with, for 20 grand, I should be able to slap his butt, is hilarious, right? But One of the things here that you'll notice is that I've not seen too much of Andy Elliott. I've seen some like shock clips where he's getting people to, on stage to take the top off. That's all marketing, right? In my opinion, it's all marketing designed to generate attention. And I've seen a few clips of him as well where he says some sales advice, and sales advice is actually very good, but he's kind of packaged in this way. But what I will say here is, what you'll notice online most of these days is that there is a lot of people selling programs, every type of course you can imagine, they're selling it, but their main funnel, the main way they're generating attention and getting attention is they are building up their personal brand on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, etc. And what's kind of happened, there's been a subtle shift over the last year or so, is that basically now people are relying on their personal brand to carry so much of their weight. Because if you think about it, right, when you've got a huge personal brand, everyone knows who Chris Hemsworth is, everyone knows who, Arnold Schwarzenegger is, right? Huge personal brands. Everyone knows who Kanye West is. And with those personal brands, there is automatically a lot of persuasion and psychology boxes already ticked, right? So huge social proof. A lot of people, it doesn't matter if the advice is good or bad. A lot of people, because it kind of grows like this cult-like following, a lot of people will follow these guys anyway, right? Even if the advice is bad. I'm not saying Andy Elliott's advice is bad here. I haven't watched enough of him to, full on make that judgment. But even if it is bad, a lot of people will follow him anyway. That generates social proof. Also, having a huge personal brand, when you've got, 100,000 followers, 200,000 followers, 1 million followers, whatever, that gives you authority in the space automatically. Even if you're basically giving wrong advice. I remember I used to run this type of LinkedIn agency, and I just couldn't get my content to get any type of reach. And I used to watch people who used to skyrocket with their content. They get massive reach, and they were perhaps a brand new competitor of me. And I used to watch them outline some sales steps and lead generation steps in their content posts and things like this. And I used to remember looking at those posts and thinking, that advice is wrong, because I spend all day generating leads, all day for years, right? And I knew the advice was wrong. But the people who were following that person, because they had such a big reach and such a big personal brand, they all just agreed with it, right? And if I was to comment on these posts, I would get booed off stage, even though I was correct, right? It's because authority and social proof, they matter when it comes to people making decisions, which is the reason that so many people aim for personal brands these days, because it already ticks a lot of persuasion boxes. Yes, you can be highly persuasive and grow a thriving business without the use of having a massive, personal brand. But it just basically does the heavy lifting for you, if you know what I mean, okay? So that was Andy Elliott. Up next, we've got Justin Waller, who is a big personal brand himself. He is in the masculinity sphere, I believe. I don't know if he teaches things on, building an online business, but this is the clip that I'm going to react to, okay? Let's give it a go.
Work, 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 work. No results, but I'm a little bit better. Work, 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 work. No results, but I'm a little bit better. Work, 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 work. No results, I'm a little bit better. Work. Boom. I just got paid. And it looks like overnight success.
I actually don't know Justin, don't really watch his content, but what he's talking about, I really, really like. It's a deep kind of psychology hack. So, you will know if you've tried something for a while and you have seen no results, things start to pile up, things start to get a little bit demotivating. And the reason why is because you're not really getting any reward from what you're trying to achieve, right? And in situations like that, it's actually very, very hard to continue doing what you're doing for the intensity and, for the duration with as much stamina as you are, because you're getting demotivated because you're not seeing the result that you're getting. But what he was saying there was work, 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 no result, I'm getting a little bit better. Work, 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 no result again, but I'm still a little bit better. It's called master orientation, and it's part of the self-determination theory. And basically, there is two types of motivations. This is some good psychology for you. There is the extrinsic motivation, which is where you are getting things. You work really hard and suddenly you can get money, which is allowing you to get, a car, which is allowing you to get a nicer house, right? That's extrinsic motivation. And you've got intrinsic motivation. That is the character that you are leveling up when you are overcoming the obstacles and the challenges that you're facing. And so a good way for people to reward themselves and to keep that motivation up when nothing's happening for you is to actually focus on what type of character is growing, what type of improvements you're making. If you're looking at like a video game, right? You playing a video game, let's say you're playing Skyrim or something like that, Elder Scrolls, you might get the gold and things like that. You might not, but your character is leveling up all the time, which means your character can naturally take on larger challenges. It's better. So if you look at yourself at that, maybe this result is not working out in the way that I want it, but I'm leveling up a little bit. I'm getting a bit better. That is a great way to keep yourself motivated. So I actually really liked that clip on this. And here we've got him, the top G. What's he got to say today in his naturally controversial tone?
When you see a man like me at 3 o'clock on a Tuesday morning at a gas station in a $400,000 sports car, I get out of the Lambo, there's a bitch in the front. I get out and putting gas in. Do you look at me and go, he studied really hard in school? Or do you look at me and think, drug dealer? You think drug dealer because you understand you must break the rules to make money. Doctors have followed the rules their whole lives and they're driving Citroen.
So I was right? He says things in a naturally controversial way. Now in this clip here, it's interesting because there's a bunch of things going on. So Tate's basic message is that you should be, a contrarian. You should have an unconventional way of looking at things. And you need to have an unconventional way of looking at things because you need to basically generate money if you want to have a business against the norms, right? In a different way from what money is generated in society, which is basically just describing business owners. You can't have an employee mindset, you need to have a business owner mindset. And this is part of him, whatever you think of him, it's undeniable that he is a master at generating attention. And so he communicates this very simple message. If he'd have communicated that message exactly as I've just said it, it would have probably not got 100 views. But looking at this short here, it got 500,000 views. And the reason why is because he said it in the most polarizing, friction, inflammatory way possible, right? He doesn't just say, I'm sat in the car with my woman. He says, I'm sat in the car with my. He quickly establishes authority by saying it's a $400,000 car. And then what he does is he throws a little bit of shade at doctors because he's saying doctors just drive Citroens. So he delivers this very basic message, which is very true. And this is a lot of why A, he gets attention, but B, it generates this very Marmite kind of, in England we have this thing called Marmite. It's like a food where either you hate it or you love it. This very polarized audience. And he says these things with such a polarizing tone, insults people just in this single clip here. He, says it in a really kind of inflammatory way that basically it generates attention. And his message is very true, but how he says it makes certain people want to disagree with him instantly because it is designed to get an emotional reaction from him. Tate is ultra persuasive. When I see him say things, it's fascinating as a person who, consults different businesses on persuasion practices and how they can convert more, how they can get more sales, how they can improve their marketing and things, all using different bits of psychology. When I see a person like that who doesn't really care if they're cancelled, he is cancelled now, I believe, on YouTube and everything. But when I see a person like that, that ticks the box for highly persuasive. And it's highly persuasive because he basically doesn't really give a about what people think about him. That does make some people hate him, does make some people love him as well and build this cult-like following. But it's interesting just to watch how he delivers things in a particular way which, rubs people up the wrong way. I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. If you have any more clips or things you want me to react to, you can send them to me over Instagram or you can send them to me on my email address as well, both of which you'll find in my About section on my YouTube page there. If you want any persuasion cheat sheet to help your own business with various different ethical persuasion practices as well, there is a link. It's usually the top comment underneath this video or in the description as well fill out your name and whatnot in there, and when it's ready, I'll send it out to you. Okay, guys, loving the support from you all. Take it easy. See you in the next video.